hope everyone's doing okay. I thought I'd mix it up today and join you for a ride. And well, at least you can join me for a ride. So today we're going to talk about the concept of fundamental attribution error, which is a pretty common mistake that most young managers make. And I hope it's something that you can change with all your personal managers as well, and make sure that they understand this quality that normally happens with most managers. It's basically a form of bias, and this bias really talks about the fact that when it comes to biases, a lot of times we seem to blame other people for the mistakes that they make. What I mean by that is that fundamental attribution error basically talks about the theory that ultimately when you're dealing with your manager, you often blame them. I thought this would be a good one to do on the video on this motorbike, because how many of us are actually often in our cars or riding on our motorcycles and someone cuts you off and ultimately you get angry and yell at them and you blame that SOB, right? And because that person was a jerk, a terrible driver, and just a bad person in general. So I'm just going to merge here. And one of the things that when we talk about this theory is ultimately that we really need to understand that the fact that when it comes to fundamental attribution error is that we blame that driver and not necessarily the external factors that are affecting them. For example, could you be looking at the perspective that, hey, is this person have to get to the hospital because of an emergency? Is there someone in the back seat that's bleeding? Is their wife pregnant in the hospital that they have to get to very quickly, and that's why they cut you off in traffic? And they didn't mean to, but they were in such a rush because something important was happening in their life. Or maybe they're a police officer that had to get to a scene of a crime and they're driving their personal vehicle at that time. And so we often like to blame people because it's so much easier rather than look at the external conditions. And you see that happening with managers all the time. That a lot of times they're often blaming their managers for something that they couldn't handle because there was things that were affecting them that were outside of their control. For example, blaming your manager that they're always late. But in reality, maybe they live in a neighborhood or a suburb that's 2 hours away and they're always dealing with traffic. So no matter what time they get up, sometimes there's always going to be a traffic jam that affects them on that bridge, and they can't help but be late every once in a while. And so those are some of the challenges that we see with fundamental attribution error. Like I myself even saw in a case where a president said to me that I wouldn't be ready for management because I was too Asian of a leader, right? Those are racial biases at place where, because you see this coming into effect that, oh, this person can't be a great manager because of internal qualities versus maybe some external qualities that they don't have, is that they don't understand how to work with managers of different cultures, right? And so that's the challenge that we see with fundamental attribution error. And so I think it's a really important quality that we all really need to understand and consider and how to adapt to. And so the question I get from students and managers during my classes a lot of times is, well, how do I fix that if I know that I'm making these biases, fundamental attribution error all the time, and it's not necessarily my fault because sociology explains that it actually happens pretty frequently. The first is really just to work on your EQ, your emotional intelligence, so that you can really empathize with what the other person is feeling. That's the first technique. And so we build our EQ. The second is to ask questions, to understand what is behind their behavior. I think that's also a really powerful tool on dealing with this fundamental attribution error, is asking employees, well, why are you late? What is going on? Well, why are you doing the things that you're doing today? So that you really understand what's going on with their behavior. And so I think that's some of the things that you guys can think about really when you're understanding how to deal with people in a better way. And third is really just taking the time to look at 360-degree thinking. We've talked about this in before is really having a 360-degree viewpoint, looking at all the external factors that might be affecting your employee or your manager's performance before falling into the fundamental attribution error trap. And I hope that helps, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.